Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
What's up, /x/? I have a story that I've debated on telling for the last 7 years or so. A series of strange things that happened to me while I was growing up. I'm not sure what finally pushed me to the point of telling it, but while on a walk on a local trail today, I finally felt the urge to share it. At the moment, I've just ordered some food, and I'm playing modded Minecraft to pass the time and feel happy, if you can call it that. I'm pre-typing this stuff, so I should be able to post it all in pretty rapid succession, and that would give time to answer any questions if you have any. This is a true story, and based on my memory to the best of my ability to remember it. I've had a handful of traumatic experiences, so my memory has some missing chunks, but it is what it is, unfortunately. If I remember anything else, or if anyone has any questions, please ask away. I'll do my best to respond as I go. I just want to share my story and get all of this off my chest now. Maybe I'll feel a little better. Currently, I'm some 24-year-old correctional officer who is probably dealing with depression and slowly developing an alcohol problem. Some of this stuff still crosses my mind sometimes, and the feeling it gives me is a mixture of extreme sadness and frustration, but what can I do? I'm just some guy. I guess I should also say my name is Cody. To give some background, back when I was around 10 years old in the midst of my parents getting a divorce, I basically lived my life playing RuneScape and reading books. Things were bad and we lived in the middle of nowhere in Michigan, so these were my only ways to escape my parents yelling and shouting at each other all the time. One of the book series I was really into was Harry Potter. While playing RuneScape one night grinding my mining level, I see someone with the name Fox29. Being a 10-year-old, I was like, oh yeah, someone that likes what I like. So I abandoned the mine and started following them, trying to make a new friend. This person was named Danny. I'm not using fake names because it's virtually impossible to find these people now. Believe me, I've tried desperately hard to. Danny was around 13 years old at this time based on what she was telling me. After about a week of occasionally catching each other online, she introduced me to her boyfriend, a guy she called Gabriel, who I would later learn was actually named Andy. These two were neighbors and claimed they lived in Georgia, something else I'm also not entirely sure is true. From that point on, Andy and I almost instantly became best friends. He was 13 years old like Danny, but he and I basically kicked it off as bros almost immediately. It was like one of those situations where you meet somebody and your personalities just click, if that makes sense. So I spent the entire rest of that summer playing RuneScape every day and talking to Danny and Andy. Looking back on it, with my parents still actively working on separating and still living in the same house, this was an amazing way for me to get away from all of that. Around December, my dad suddenly walked out of the house and never came back. My mom was heartbroken, and we ended up abruptly moving to my aunt's in a different part of Michigan for a while. During this time, I had to change schools twice, got bullied a ton, and ended up becoming a fat emo loser who would eat to cope with his emotions. After several months, we ended up moving to another city in Michigan, much closer to where my mom has family, Flint, Michigan. We moved into a small house in the middle of nowhere once again, off of some gravel road. The house was old, worn down, pretty sketchy. Had some neighbors probably a quarter-mile down the road, but was overall pretty secluded. We were renting it because my family has always been dirt poor, and even with the help of my mom's side, we were only barely making it. So I spent the summer cooped up in my closet-sized bedroom, playing Fable 2, still not sure how my mom managed to afford it for my birthday. Depression had hit me at this point because of my parents separating and the constant bullying I was dealing with, but I hadn't realized it yet. My mom and sisters were all dealing with their own shit, so nobody really noticed either. Emo was kind of getting popular around this time, so my mom/older sister just assumed I really liked the style, which to be fair, I did. As fall came closer, I managed to get a really old PC we had laying around functional again and booted up RuneScape. At this point, I think I was 12 years old. It feels like a year is missing here, but maybe the story actually started when I was 11. Anyway, I hop on RuneScape for old time's sake, and lo and behold, Fox29 is online. I immediately message them, excited that I've gotten a chance to reunite with my friends. Andy responds, and we talk for a little while, catching up on what all has happened. Danny is currently on vacation somewhere, but my memory is failing me on where it was. Andy tells me that he spent the summer at his mother's home in Russia, and that he's emo now. He tells me that he's been depressed lately, and after a lot of prying, tells me that his mother beats him and that he lives with his dad exclusively now. I am shocked to hear about the strange similarities between our recent experiences and tell him about my own struggles and the way I've been feeling. I remember that during this time it felt like I had a weight on my chest all the time. It would literally ache because I just felt so sad. I'm not sure how else to describe it. Looking back on it, that was brutal to deal with as a preteen who had a mom and sisters that depended on him to be strong. Eventually, Andy and I start noticing more similarities. We tend to have the same moods at the same times. More things in our life happen near simultaneously. Shit's just kind of weird, right? So we decided to start testing it out. This is the part where I realized with practical certainty that I wasn't just being fucked with, and that maybe something actually was going on here. Andy would target a specific part of his body, not tell me anything, and cut it with a knife. I could feel a strange, sharp, tingly feeling, and would tell him what body part it was. I was right every time, as far as he was telling me. Then I started doing the same. He got it right every single time. Keep in mind, I was using a computer with a processor so old that it ran RuneScape with lag. Didn't have the money for speakers, let alone a mic or headphones or a webcam, anything like that. To top it off, even if we did, my mom was always very nervous about me talking to people online and refused to let me get a webcam or use things like MSN Messenger or AIM. Not that that stopped me. I was reasonably tech-savvy in comparison to her. So we're probably states away, and there is no possible way for him to know if I'm stabbing my forearm, my ankle, my stomach, or if I'm even stabbing anything at all. Yet whether I did something or claimed I did, and actually did nothing, he was able to guess the right spot, or that there wasn't a spot, literally 100% of the time. I want to say that I had a brain and that this freaked me out, but the reality was I remembered the wish I made on that star, and I wanted so desperately to be different and live a unique life that this just made me super excited. We then officially dubbed ourselves Connection Brothers. It's not an original name and it sounds pretty fucking stupid actually, but we just knew that somehow the two of us were connected in a way that nobody else we knew of was. We started testing the range of this strange ability we had, trying to focus on a certain thought or a certain feeling. Emotions seemed to work better than thinking of a word or an object, and we could only really get it some of the time, which as of now I would like to chalk up to coincidence or luck, despite some of the evidence suggesting otherwise. Over time, it felt like the connection got stronger the more we talked and spent time hanging out. For some reason, during the next few months, at random times, I start having strange dreams. I was at one point a pretty hardcore Christian kid, the type that would sing songs about God because it made me happy and feel like I was closer to Him. After my parents divorced and depression hit, I guess I decided that God just didn't exist anymore. The first dream I had, some Native American guy and I were standing out in a field that looked like it was nearby. He said something to me, but I didn't understand it, like I couldn't even hear his voice. Suddenly, his eyes started glowing blue-green, and I instantly recognized him as some kind of demon. We started fighting. I held up surprisingly well against him, I think. He was using some kind of tooth or something that was sharpened and fashioned into a knife. He started getting the upper hand, and right before he killed me, a massive white wooden cross fell out of the sky, impaling into the ground. He looked at it, muttered in a super deep voice something I couldn't understand, and then fled the scene. The sun suddenly shined in the sky and I woke up. The next dream I had, I was trapped in my bedroom, but it was slightly altered, like the door was both there and it wasn't. I felt this strange burning sensation all around me, like something was rapidly coming for me and engulfing me in itself. It felt like I was being smothered, couldn't breathe. My vision started going dark, save for the doorway that was there in one eye and a solid wall in the other eye. In the doorway, a very blurred, morphed silhouette of a man was hovering. I swear it was facing me. Something suddenly wrapped its arms around me, and I felt such a pleasant sensation at the touch of its skin. I couldn't see it. My vision actually got shielded completely, but if I were religious, I would have sworn it was an angel or something. Someone who meant to do nothing but protect me. I suddenly woke up feeling weirdly good, secure. The third dream I had, and I know it was terrifying, but I have absolutely no memory of what happened. I remember the burning heat again. I remember thinking that I was going to be taken straight to hell. I remember that whatever happened, it was absolutely fucking horrible. But there's nothing else I can remember. It's at this point in my memory where things start to get really hazy for a while. I'm trying to remember what happened, but it's actually kind of sketching me out how little I remember. I'll try to summarize what I can here. Basically, after a few months, sometime in February maybe, Danny tells Andy and I that she knows about this phenomenon and that she has a connection with 4 of her friends. Yeah, 4. As in like all 5 of them are connected. This part I believe was faked by Danny and possibly Andy was forced to go along with it. I don't know. But then Danny goes on to form a club in their school with Andy, called the Connection Brothers. The goal was to find more people like us, people who might have connections with each other. I guess her idea was the connection most likely brings people together sooner or later, because of the way coincidences work and all that. People who are connected are probably drawn to each other in one way or another. The club actually ended up getting like 60 to 80 members if I remember correctly. They went to a pretty huge public school. Shortly after this, Danny and Andy suddenly break up. This blindsided the hell out of me, and ultimately, I came to understand that Andy broke up with Danny. He then seems to go kind of off the deep end. I guess the trauma from his mom beating him, which I then find out she did with the aid of a man she was seeing at the time, got to him. Meanwhile, in the real world, I'm going to bed one night in my tiny little bedroom. My emotions are still all over the place, and I'm still often feeling soul-crushingly sad, and I don't understand why. I sit down on my tiny single-wide mattress on the floor and just kind of stare at the floor for a minute. Out of nowhere, a sudden heat hits my face. It was like it was just a cloud of heat. I honestly don't know how else to describe it. It was cold because we couldn't afford the heat, so when this hit, I had no explanation for it. In that moment, I remember feeling extremely unsafe and probably the most dread-filled I'd ever felt in my life. I grabbed my blanket, left my bedroom in a hurry, and laid on the floor in the living room. My older sister at this point was sleeping on the pull-out bed in the couch in the living room. She asks me what's wrong, but I can't bring myself to answer or really even say shit. She goes and gets my mom, probably sketched out at how I'm acting, and as soon as my mom touches me, I just absolutely break down. I spent the next 3 days missing school and crying my eyes out almost constantly. I told my sisters and mom about it, and my sisters think it was some kind of demon, and my mom thinks that maybe the effects of the divorce and the fact that I've tried to be someone they could lean on for so long finally got to be too much for me to shoulder without help. I say and choose not to believe in ghosts or demons in the present day, but my honest opinion, I'm pretty sure it was both. At this point, I'm probably 13 years old. My older sister has an emo friend named Brett that she brings over one day, and I'm pretty excited because this guy is fun, actually pretty cool, and treats me like a human being. Even says some inspiring shit about how I should dress how I want to and be whoever I want to be. Brett comes over semi-frequently, but this day was different. We're hanging out in the bedroom, me, Brett, my sister, and her boyfriend Dustin all cramped up on the tiny mattress. Brett is looking through a random old yearbook my sister found stashed away in the house when we first moved into it. Shit's old, dusty, and black and white. All kind of joking around, having a decent time, and I ask Brett a question. Silence. I look over and he's now just staring blankly at the wall. I say his name several times. My sister says his name a couple times and shakes him. He doesn't respond. Dustin is pretty sketched out, but he's kind of the quiet type. Brett then stands up, eyes still glazed over in a blank stare, and starts walking out of the bedroom. I squeeze in between him and start walking backwards, trying to get his attention as he walks down the hall. He's still not responding to any attempts to get his attention. Guy goes all the way outside and walks right up to the well we have in our yard, fucking dunks his head in it. My sister grabs his shoulders and pulls him out, and he starts shaking and looks scared as shit. We take him inside. My mom is now here, gets him a towel, and we try to ask him what's up. He says he doesn't know, that it felt like something was just controlling him, and then the glaze suddenly returns. And then shit hits the fucking fan. It's dark out at this point and Brett starts screaming shit in Latin. I wish I was joking. In like a straight-up screamo voice, flailing his arms all over the place and throwing shit. For whatever reason, I kick into gear like I've been doing this my whole life and tell my sister and Dustin to hold him down. My sister isn't strong, and neither is her boyfriend, but she is pretty big if you catch my drift, probably pushing over 300 pounds. She sits on him to keep him still, but he's still screaming shit and randomly adding in nasty death threats in English. My mom is properly WTF out, and I tell her to go grab the Bible out of her bedroom. I have lost my faith in God at this point, and still don't believe in any of that shit. But at the moment, this is just what my brain was telling me to do. My mom brings the Bible in here, and I tell her to start reading the Lord's Prayer. BC, I don't know my way around a Bible. Brett then starts going even more ballistic, literally lifts my sister up. This guy is like 115 pounds soaking wet, 5'8". Dustin jumps on top of both of them, sending Brett back down to the couch. I also join in, struggling to keep him down while he starts lifting us. My mom starts shouting the prayer at the top of her lungs. He's screaming. And then I notice he's suddenly whimpering and panicking. I get everyone off of him. He's once again shaking, crying, and absolutely terrified. We call his parents, talk to them a bit. Dustin has gotten into his car and fucked off. Can't blame him. He was shaken up and said he was really sensitive to supernatural shit and this just felt wrong to him. Later found out that Brett's parents took him in for multiple psychological evaluations, and they all basically told his parents that he wasn't crazy and didn't have anything wrong with him. Still not sure what happened that day. My older sister swears up and down he was possessed by a demon, and my mom refuses to talk about it. I just like to pretend it didn't happen, for the most part. Back to Danny and Andy, they stopped playing RuneScape, and they both get me to start messaging them on their YouTube channel, also with the name Fox29. Last I checked and it still exists. I just checked again and it doesn't anymore. Some guy named Fox RSPS makes RuneScape videos, but that's not the same person. This was back before Google owned YouTube, and you could have your own YouTube page with a lot of customization, and you could send people messages and had an inbox and shit. So for whatever reason, Andy continues to use Danny's YouTube as a way to speak to me. I think she actually did this because he refused to talk to her, and she still wanted to keep an eye on him, as well as to spy on our conversations. Danny at this point is probably the most invested in my friendship with her that she's ever been. She clearly still cares about Andy, and she serves as my only real positive support system at this point. Most of my conversations with Andy begin to turn into arguments, and I don't know. I don't remember a lot of it anymore, but it felt like he hated me. I still loved him as a brother, but I often got upset with him. He treated me pretty badly. My mom sent me to a therapist who actually turned out to be a shitty old man, who I think in an attempt to try to get me to relate to him, would often talk about South Park. I got prescribed antidepressants, but I ended up making my mom take them instead, as I felt she needed them more than I did. I guess she agreed, because she did actually start taking them. She probably figured if I was going to refuse anyway, she might as well. Eventually, Andy tells me Gabriel isn't his real name, starts going by Michael for a while, and then finally tells me his name is Andy. Danny tells me that he'd recently started a band called Black Veil Brides. Yes, I wish I was joking, but this is what they were actually telling me. Do I believe it? That one I'm not really sure of. One day I tried to get Andy to prove he was who he was by tweeting something. Sure enough, a few moments later, he tweets about something random. I'm choosing to chalk that up to coincidence because I refuse to believe that I was at one point connected to the lead singer of Black Veil Brides. Not that I hate their music or anything, but it just sounds pretty retarded and far-fetched to me. I don't know. More time passes, I continue trying to keep contact with Danny and Andy, but they're both around less and less. Then I came to the realization that my mom can't support my siblings and I all at once anymore. She's working a shitty job on her own and just can't do it. I make the decision to move in with my father. Something I told her was because I wanted to do. I could see the way she was constantly stressed out and how difficult and tight money was. Honestly though, I'm not sure I would have made such a responsible decision today knowing what I do now. I thought my depression was bad when I lived with my mom, but with my dad, the one place I felt safe, man. With Danny and Andy essentially no longer speaking to me, no support systems, no friends, nothing, I went to live with my father. He and his girlfriend and her spoiled shitty brat of a son. The good news was I had my own room. The bad news was I got emotionally abused a lot during this time, and my dad liked to do things like wait until I had fallen asleep, then run in and jump on my chest or slap the hell out of me. Things he said he was just joking with. I also ended up losing about 3/4 of my right eardrum because I had a bad infection that he refused to take me to the doctor for. Long story short, living with my dad was a new kind of hell. I attempted an hero twice during my stay with him, neither of which anybody ever found out about. Once, I slit my wrists and hoped I would bleed out, woke up and was totally fine. Other time I downed a bunch of painkillers, but I guess I didn't take enough. I don't know. I was a dumbass. Anyway, the summer after I turned 14, I'm suddenly contacted by Andy again. He's doing a bit better, and strangely enough, we get on RuneScape to hang out again. He has made some friends. Life seems to be going okay for him and we aren't arguing. He introduces me to two people, Alec and Brandon. Alec is around Andy's age, 17-ish. At this point, Brandon is my age, and things go well for a little while. Brandon and I become good friends, and the CB, Connection Brothers group Danny created, is actually still going strong. They have a meetup in Georgia, which I was unable to attend in person, so I attended via Andy's laptop. And for whatever reason, people start speculating that Brandon and I are also Connection Brothers. Brandon and I were fairly similar, but I don't know that I ever really felt that we were connected in that way, at least not like it was with Andy or with Alec. There is also talk of several of them developing special abilities. Danny supposedly could know the outcome of certain future events. It wasn't like seeing the future, so much as having an understanding of it was the best way she could describe it. I honestly don't know, and I never developed anything similar, unless I've just never recognized it as something special somehow. Andy claimed he was part angel as well. Things started sounding way too crazy for my liking, but this time in my life, I leaned into these people really hard. They were the only light I had in a hell full of darkness. I went along with some of the weird shit they said because it meant that I still had friends I cared about. So it was pretty devastating when Alex said he was also going to join a band one day and then never came back to talk to me again. Additionally, Andy and I began arguing constantly again, and we also stopped talking. My memory is still pretty hazy here, but probably a few years go by. I'm now 16 or 17 years old, and I try to move back in with my mom. She has a boyfriend now, is doing much better financially and emotionally, and I can finally escape the hell that is my father's home. My dad's response to this? He takes my cell phone, cuts off all communication I have with my mom, and keeps me like this for several months. My stepmom is pregnant at this point in time. One day I came home from school and nobody was there. My phone is on the counter. I spent an entire weekend alone with nobody contacting me, no idea where everyone is, nothing. Finally, after a week, my grandma of all people calls me and tells me that my stepmom abruptly went into labor. My baby brother was born 2 months premature, and that they would probably be up at the hospital for a month or two. Then, just like that, hangs up. I continue going to school, get really into One Piece, start slowly climbing out of the crippling depression I'm dealing with, and life living on my own is honestly amazing. Occasionally, groceries would be left on the doorstep when I would get home from school. Don't know who was buying them. Nobody ever told me, and I don't want to talk to my dad to ask about it, so shrug. I actually managed to pull myself out of the rut I was in and started feeling happy for the first time in like 6 years. I was going on jogs in the park at midnight, still getting plenty of sleep via naps, going to class and getting great grades. It was the best place I'd ever been in. Then, out of nowhere one day, my dad and stepmom returned with the baby and my stepbrother. Like 2 weeks of pure hell goes by where my dad controls everything about my life, and then he suddenly tells me he's sending me back to live with my mom again because he's not going to pay for me to eat anymore. Cool beans. I'll fucking take it, boys. I moved back in with my mom. I'm happy again. She missed me, and I got real close with her. My sister started looking up to me as a responsible and smart older brother. Things go back to the way they were before, only I'm happy now. I do well in school, although I end up hanging out with a girl who was my best friend for a while who was emotionally manipulative as shit, and things go pretty well. My thoughts of Andy, Alec, Danny, the Cringe Brothers bullshit, all of that are long behind me. I met a fantastic girl and we started dating. Everything in my life is going great, man. At some point, I end up getting a message from Danny's account on RuneScape while randomly hopping on one day. The person messaging me claims that his name is Vaclav, later added on Facebook to be Vaclav Zemanek. He has since shut down his Facebook, although he does still have an old one from when he was a young teenager still up. He lived in the UK back then, but I think now lives in Tennessee. Vaclav tells me he's Andy's cousin, and that Andy wanted him to keep an eye on me. Vaclav is also a dick to me, and tells me he doesn't give a shit about me. Being a desperate teenager, I deal with his bullshit, and eventually he gets me to get on a game that he played regularly, Our World. Some of you might be familiar with it, but I doubt it. It was a pretty shit game. It still exists, weirdly enough. I guess he would only randomly check RuneScape on Danny's account to see if I happened to be active. Apparently, Danny changed her YouTube password at some point and locked Andy out of the account. I really wish I could still access all of those messages back and forth we had. Anyway, Vaclav had his own account on Our World, so I kept in contact with him for a long time. Eventually, he got bored of the game and I added him on Facebook, but ultimately that too resulted in him deleting his account and never contacting me again. There's a part of me that suspects that Vaclav was actually in charge of everything this whole time, and that everyone else was fake. But one event proved that at least one person did exist. One day out of nowhere, I get an email from Danny. I don't know how she got my email. She wants to talk on the phone, I give her my number, go out into the woods to be away from my family, and talk with Danny for about an hour, and she tells me she just spent 4 months in a coma and only recently woke up. The coma was apparently stress-induced, as she was in college and working a lot and everything just got to be too much for her. We talked briefly about Vaclav, and she asked me if I've heard his accent yet. I was never able to get him to call me, but apparently he still has a pretty strong British accent. She tells me that she stopped talking to me because she got angry with me and had never planned on speaking to me again, but that she was glad she reached out. She also told me she loved me, in a romantic way, that she had felt that way for a while. At this point, I am a year deep into a relationship with a girl that I am extremely invested in, my fiancée to this day. It will be 8 years strong in May 2022. I don't really know how to respond, but I tell Danny that I love her as a friend, and I'm really glad she reached out. She then says she has to go, and once again, doesn't reply to me any further. To this day, I still haven't heard a word from her. I'm tired of all the whiplash from these fuckers, honestly. As I think about this stuff more and more memories are coming to surface. Back when I was living in the home in Flint, I had a series of dreams about this demon. It was never really clear to me if it was the one that caused the issue with Brett, but it actually showed up to me in several dreams, all the way up until I was 16. The last dream I had about it, I was in some underground room in a big city, and she was chained up to the wall. She had several IV drips going into her, and her veins were glowing neon green. She acted like she was pretty fond of me, but I'm pretty sure my intentions in the dream were pretty nasty for her. I actually feel pretty fond of her, and wish she would show herself to me again. But honestly, it's probably just a series of autistic dreams I had while wishing I had a girlfriend, so who knows? I'm good at brushing this shit off by now. Anyways, that's the gist of it. Had some strange connection-like coincidences with some weird people. And there's also this guy Robert I forgot to talk about, but if anyone wants to know about him and his side of things, I'd be happy to elaborate further. Sorry if this was all a big letdown. It's pretty hazy in my head anymore. It was just a weird life growing up. Sometimes I get this bad feeling that I'm missing very important memories. It makes me feel sad in the way I used to, but I tend to shake it off quickly. I try not to dwell on it if I can help it.
I read your whole story. It just makes me wonder why you said all these things and yet still don't believe in ghosts or demons. It seems like pretending that they do not exist has made your life harder.
Honestly, I think it makes my life easier. It's easier to pretend none of this shit really means anything and that it was all just a bunch of crazy random bullshit. It brings me comfort, I guess. Probably some kind of bad denial.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.